think that this is particularly a great time for the National Landing to be talking to downtown Bellevue, because as I've learned, there's a lot of parallels and similarities between our districts. And I'll just point out a few. Firstly, I think we have roughly around the same amount of commercial office space. Both areas are going through transformation with a lot of growth on the horizon. We've carved out niches for ourselves around tech and innovation, and seeing Amazon as a major anchor tenant and a growing anchor tenant for both of us, as well as where we sit within our geographic region. So we're both just central to the region, but outside the core. And how does that play into sense of place? Additionally, I think, as I understand it, both districts also are challenged perhaps by what I call legacy urban design, where we have well-maintained and attractive places, but they weren't built to be people-centered, and that we're focused on how do we create that active public realm, that, that very highly desired sense of place. And I would posit that it's really a role for an organization like a BID, as well as all the other stakeholders and actors, to build that sense of place, which we know is an important ingredient to the overall success of any district. So let me introduce you a little to National Landing. You saw the video, and one of the exciting things in watching that was like, wow, that stat is already out of date. We've got more money coming in, which is really exciting, and more change. But how we shape that is so critical to the success that we ultimately will see. So tell you a little bit about National Landing. We're just minutes outside of downtown DC, located in Arlington, Virginia, and we're actually Virginia's largest walkable downtown. And as noted, we're comprised of 3 distinct neighborhoods, but our charge has really been to unify the area under one umbrella and raise the profile of the district, both nationally and within our region. And so the BID ourselves, we're a public-private partnership, and we're focused on creating a more vibrant and exciting place for our stakeholders, which include the residential community, the commercial community, businesses, visitors to the area. And most BIDs, their focus is, bread and butter wise, is often clean and safe. And as I hear it, Bellevue is quite clean and quite safe. And it's same for National Landing. So it's never really conceived of the traditional role that BIDs play. We've actually focused on a number of other areas, and I'll just talk briefly about them. One of those is community events and outreach. In normal times, we do over 300 events, and we see this as a great opportunity for community building and general regional exposure and activation. And economic development. So this goes to, right now, serving and supporting small businesses and meeting their needs, but in a bigger picture, having the market intelligence to understand and deeply understand and benchmark our economy, and also work to attract and retain tenants. When it comes to marketing and promotion, we consider ourselves placemakers in chief, placemakers, but also storytellers in chief. And so we think, our role is really telling the story, magnifying the impact, making sure we are getting exposure in the press, and also creating the brand and the future identity that we're looking for. And I think 2 areas, which I'll touch on more today, have to do with our public realm and beautification. Sorry, I'm using an old slide with a typo. That was my bad, wrong version. And then transportation, because I think the trifecta of sort of beautification, an emphasis on public realm, and transportation advocacy, and the way we really think about it is connectivity and mobility, that those are areas where are critical to the creation of a sense of place, and also placemaking and identity. So we are an area that is seeing rapid investment and major change. We actually planned for this, and over 10 years ago, we saw a plan that was really aggressive in terms of its growth trajectory, and it's now really coming to fruition. So I think we stand benefiting from the fact we've planned for the growth, and so people can have anticipated it. And we also have the concurrent investments in parks and transportation infrastructure that you want to see with this level of growth. So right now, I think maybe you caught in the video some benchmarking. We're already a downtown that's the size of downtown Austin or downtown Oakland, just looking at the office scale alone. And we are poised to shortly become more of a downtown Miami in scale. And so that is quite exciting. But in the future, we are seeing that our transformation is really going to be brought about by a slew of both public and private investments. So we're going to see a lot of office and residential development, but we also, as I mentioned, those concurrent investments in transportation and in parks, and in transforming the streetscape and the realm that is experienced by the pedestrian people. This is so important for building that kind of long-term attractive sense of place. And I think we see in the middle a rendering of Amazon's new Helix building. But one of the things we hope in this transformation is that we begin to evolve our design and the interests and really destination components to our downtown. So to understand where we sit within the region, as I mentioned, just minutes from the heart of the capital. So as you can see here, and we also sit right on an airport, a major airport, which is an unusual characteristic for a downtown, but one which underscores the fact that we've really, for a long time, had these amazing transportation bones, and that includes, metro, slew of highways that are intersecting here, and the fact that we're a Lyft or a Uber ride that's only 5 or 10 minutes away from downtown. So again, I would also note that with Amazon's their decision to locate their second headquarters in this area, I think there were 3 critical things that they looked at, and one was, the pipeline for talent. And so we have really diverse talent in this region, and that was considered a major factor. The other one was location, the convenience of the location, the proximity to a major region with a significant talented population, but then transportation, right? So the ability to have transportation choice and ease of getting to their campus was really important as well. So this is a critical component for our economic competitiveness in the future. So this is a little bit on its side that we want to be able to make sure you can see, but really the point of showing you this expanded district is the fact that we were a much smaller business improvement district that only encompassed Crystal City, and now have expanded more than 60% in area and in budget to encompass Potomac Yard and Pentagon City. And really the importance of this is what the collective impact of unifying this area under one umbrella organization, and that is, it raises it up as such a large scale downtown. And it also underscores, as part of this tremendous need to unify the area. It's fairly disparate in terms of its experience. So we have seen the charge, and the charge that our stakeholders saw as a benefit of expanding the bid was to unify the area, both from a marketing and brand perspective and elevating it on a national scale, but also to actually physically tie the area together more meaningfully. And that's how we are also addressing and approaching our placemaking as well. So just to give you a sense of where we stand and some critical economic profile. We are a major hotel destination, which obviously is a difficult thing to be right now in the hospitality sector, but we are the second largest hub of hospitality in the region. No, no surprise given our proximity to the airport. We have some 15 hotels and almost 6,000 rooms. What is unique within our downtown is the amount of residential we already have. We have about 26,000 residents, and we have 7,000 units in the pipeline. So that will substantially grow the residential population. And this is a really important component of building place, is having that mix of uses. Because the mix of uses will bring more life to our street and the greater ability to support the kind of entertainment oriented retail, additional restaurants. And so this has been actually a goal within Arlington in general, is to bring balance to our commercial districts in terms of the residential and office mix. But we're also happy to report that we are seeing an increase in office, largely buoyed by Amazon, because they'll have over 4 million square feet of office in the pipeline. But additionally, just in general, we're looking at a ticking up of our investments. And right now it's roughly an $8 billion picture in terms of what's in the pipeline in terms of private sector investment. A good chunk of that is Amazon's HQ2. But importantly, a lot of this growth is tempered by ensuring that we're growing in a sustainable way. And that is investments in infrastructure. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, but to the tune of $4 billion, which is fairly exceptional. Some of those investments will have implications for the entire region and beyond. And so two critical things that happened in the last 2+ years were the advent of two new anchors to our district. Just to give you a sense, Crystal City has always been, Crystal City specifically, has been the hub of the commercial face of our downtown. And it suffered a lot in the loss of jobs when the federal sector started to really step back on the concentration of office in our area. We were also affected by base realignment and closure. So we saw actually 24,000 jobs leave our downtown, mostly associated with federal jobs. So the advent of having Amazon step in and bring 25,000 jobs actually filled a very significant gap for us when we were experiencing, fairly high office vacancy at 20% at the highest. So it was a huge boon to our downtown, but I would say that it really spurred, I think, accelerated our growth, but we were already seeing a tremendous amount of investment, what I showed on that last slide, even prior to Amazon's investment. I would say that we would be a fast transforming area. Amazon only accelerated that transformation, and I think provided a market validation for others to see all those essential ingredients that we had that make the area really attractive from a access and location standpoint. So they'll be bringing 25,000 jobs. They just announced the plans for their phase 2 site. And I think some of the things I want to note that I will change our experience of place is that they're also, as you know, in your market, have committed $2 billion in a housing equity fund. And for us, because we are a residential downtown as well, we are really interested in being able to sustain and hold up more affordable housing and to have more inclusive growth and development. And their signature, or I should say their initial landmark investment of their equity fund was of a development in our Crystal City area. And that's 800 units. It's a partnership with the Washington Housing Conservancy, but it really changed the market because what we were seeing with affordable housing was that we were only able to incrementally improve that picture, and that was a big shift for us to be able to do that. So we're really happy to see that level of investment. Additionally, just want to note, if you haven't seen it, with their new campus, they're also bringing that iconic architecture, a feel of biophilic design, thinking about how do we capitalize on our skyline, and also the outstanding views that we have of Washington, D.C. and the Capitol from our area. So that's to the north of our district, is where all of Amazon's buildings are going, in that Pentagon City area of National Landing. And then to the immediate south, which was an announcement that happened concurrent with the Amazon announcement, was the creation of the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus. And while that is, it's actually considered part of National Landing, although outside of our bid boundaries, because it's in Alexandria, Virginia, it is, walking distance from our downtown. And this is critical. I think all of our employers see the opportunity to have a pipeline of talent in proximity to our downtown as a major differentiator in our market. So we are really pleased from building a place that we have two critical anchors on both sides of our both ends of our downtown. And so I wanted to turn to talk a little bit about the importance in connectivity, and in terms of how we think about building a sense of place and placemaking. I think I noted at the outset that we had some urban design legacy challenges for our district, while we have outstanding transportation bones, like heavy rail, an airport. We've got our metro system. We've got even a BRT, but we lack the sense of a district that was designed for people, and for people to get around. And I think that that's so critically important, because there are very few things that can differentiate places, and some of that is just the feel on the ground for employers, for residents. And so for us, Crystal City in particular, but really the whole area of National Landing, came to fruition in the 1960s and 70s, at a time when it was really about drivable density. And so many of our buildings were very internalized. We even had, we still have, a legacy internal underground market, mall, really. We have other malls as well. And so the goal has been, in the planning work and in new development and in transportation projects, is to restore and rebuild and create connections in our downtown that are about human-scaled mobility and people-centered design. And a lot of that is the experience of the streetscape. It is the transportation options. It is the design of buildings for people as well, and activating them with new amenities. And we think that this is critical for our ability to be able to take ourselves to that next generation experience, is of this focus on connectivity. It was also what really sold, I think, a lot of our stakeholders on the BID's expansion, was how do we unify this area? So much of that unifying is actually physical in nature as well. So turning to that, we actually put out, we do a lot of our work around transportation advocacy, and I say that in terms of, street design as a part of that. So we put out, just a month ago, we put out Mobility Next, which was a report that highlighted how we are poised to become the most connected downtown in the country. And that's because of not only our existing transportation bones, but the $4 billion in projects that are slated for this area. And that's actually a mix of big infrastructure, new rail bridges that will bring seamless commuter access between, hopefully one day, between Virginia and Maryland and through DC. so that our commuter rail systems are completely integrated into the future, which will really shrink the region at the end of the day. But then on the other side of the big infrastructure components is again, that human scaled mobility and how we change the feel of our district on the ground. And I just want to call out two signature projects that we've called the big moves in our strategic plan. And I'm happy to share a link to it. We don't go into great depth here, but we did a strategic plan. And we really brought in all stakeholders to find alignment on our vision for the future and where the bid should put our energies. And two of the main moves that and themes were around this CC to DCA, which I'll speak to, and rethinking our Route 1 that goes through our district. So the role of the bid in this CC to DCA project was the Crystal City to DCA, that's our airport, national airport. CC to DCA intermodal connector envisioned bringing a multimodal pedestrian bridge from the foot of our commercial district, right on our commercial core, actually just 100 feet from where I'm standing, roughly, and then create a 5-minute walk to our airport, which would be truly exceptional in the nation. We can't really think of anywhere else that you can comfortably and closely walk to an airport. And what the bid did was generate this idea and concept and study its feasibility and create some really compelling renderings and the basis for public outreach and a conversation amongst all the transportation authorities and the airport to give it legs. And so this is about championing big infrastructure, and it got legs. So as part of the Amazon announcement, they specifically said, we want to see this happen, this particular piece of infrastructure, and it was funded, and it's now going in its next phase of planning. So that we believe will significantly change things. I will also say that another project is also connected to this project, and that is a wholly new intermodal center that would happen at the foot of the bridge as well. So that would be a new intermodal rail connection there. We also have I was saying that we do a lot of construction earlier. I'm hearing construction happening downstairs right now, so I apologize if you are also hearing that as well. We have a new restaurant opening downstairs, which is a positive sign, but they seem to be at work. So we also have a highway that runs through our district and really cleaves our two neighborhoods in half. And again, it's a legacy of a different era that was about getting cars comfortably in and out of our district. And we have been promoting the idea of bringing that highway to grade and really making it not a highway, but an urban boulevard. And that's actively being studied by the state of Virginia, or Commonwealth of Virginia. And we put out a report that gives, as you can see in this rendering, ideas and prototypes on the direction we could go, and we're engaging in a community conversation around that. And this is really about streetscape and street and the experience of being pedestrian oriented and shrinking the distance that exists between our neighborhoods. So connectivity is an essential component to the future for the area. The other way we're seeing connectivity play out is in major development projects for the area. This is the thing that really truly will transform the district, right? As we see buildings get rehabilitated or improved upon, or actually we're seeing wholly new development, we're able to change the ground plane experience, to build the bike lanes, to incrementally change the sidewalk, and a tremendous focus has been made on that first 20 feet of development for buildings, for even the buildings that we are just seeing reskinned, is focusing at the pedestrian level for the transformation. And I'll show you an illustrative example of taking our legacy buildings and rethinking them for the future. The other piece that goes into the connectivity is all the other good tissue that makes for a great, and all the layers that make for great urban fabric, so that we're seeing with all our development new open spaces that are focused on, you know, contemporary designed and actually building a network of open spaces, but also delivering on new retail amenities, you know, also culture and entertainment and entertainment and all of that as we think to the future, even if we might be on hiatus right now around those things, is that those are going to be essential components to place and a fully realized district. This is one example. It's a rendering, but it's actually just about done. And you can see actually on the right side of your screen, there's a building that is above it that is an old 1970s beige office building, and actually what had a lot of loading docks and really anti-urban exterior with no permeability and an internalized mall is now really focused on that street level experience, and how that can transform it. And in terms of the BID's role, not necessarily in this development, but in the conversation at large, it is talking to property owners about how to make their buildings more extroverted, realize opportunities. We have many hotels. How can they think about, you know, being less internalized, and how can they focus on the street level experience? And so I think it's incrementally with projects like this that use the existing fabric and retool it for the future, as well as bringing new amenities. In this case, we're going to have a theater that also integrates a bar and restaurant, as well as a lot of small independent retailers as well. It's kind of an exciting way to transform place. The other piece, and I want to go quickly into it, but I want to answer your questions, is sort of the BID's role in the fabric of placemaking. I think typically BIDs do not have the resources to do large scale or long-term kind of capital level investments, right? But I think the role that BIDs have is planning for and advocating for those big moves that can happen at a city level, or in our case, a county level, a city level, and it's that advocacy. We did a lot of work ourselves around open space planning to help guide where and how future parks that get proffered in our district might look and feel. Of course, we won't be responsible for actually bringing them to fruition, but we can be a convener of setting goals around a future place. So we've done a lot of that. And in the interim, there's a lot of space for BIDs to do, I think, two other very important things. One is the formulation of place and placemaking that happens through brand. So we needed to do a lot of brand work, because changing a name of an area or introducing a new name on top of the names that exist in the area is a tricky thing to do in general, but building support and building the identification of that name and the brand with the area. So we were doing that through a number of ways, but also brand moments. And we have a few examples of how we brought, you know, brand moments to the area. And we're going to be expanding on that through wayfinding. We're going to be doing, you know, brand and wayfinding for the entire district going forward, and really thinking about how we can make brand manifest in place. But I would say that in conception of place, how people view it is also how you talk about it. And so I think we try to make sure that our storytelling is as critical as our placemaking in terms of how people see our district. But in terms of placemaking, we do everything from activations, so that might be in non-pandemic times, but is a lot of outdoor exercise and concerts and event-driven activation of space, which I understand you're doing a lot in the Bellevue Downtown Association. But I think areas that we also continue to focus on is, going back to right activation, right place, I think was one of the ways of framing this dialogue. We tried to look at what are the things that we have to work against. In the case of the left-hand side of the screen at the mural wall, we have a lot of retaining walls in our district, again, that anti-urban kind of feel. And for many of those locations, ultimately, they will be changed over time through redevelopment. But in the interim, we've thought about how can we soften that? Can we soften it through landscape? Can we soften it, the experience, and make it more inviting through art and murals? We actually even took our signature cultural institution, a theater in our district, really doesn't have an at-street presence. And so we did an international art competition to paint the entire building. We can send a picture of that. I'm sorry, we don't have it in the deck. But and we did that really so that we could create a beacon for our cultural institution, and that's really important in terms of a complete downtown. Another piece in the center photo is installation we did called Impulse, which was a series of illuminated seesaws that were throughout what was formerly a parking space. So I think if you're seeing a lot of development, it means you're also sort of seeing interim conditions that are not attractive. So in this case, we had a very large parking lot on a critical corner, and which was a future and now is a current hole in the ground, and that is will be some 500 units going forward. But we actually took over that space. We painted it. We named it the grounds. We activated that parking lot and just made it a community space for events and for activities. And one of the first things we did was install all of these seesaws, the Impulse. So sort of community building opportunity, but also a really fun way to dress up a vacant space in a meaningful way. And then we continue, we're going to be doing, thinking about the pandemic, it took away a lot of our, tools in our toolbox that we like to do, which usually involve bringing people together. And so we have been focused a lot on light and how we can transform and improve what we call meanwhile spaces, as well as existing park spaces. So we're going to be doing a series of whimsical light installations that people can experience safely and at their own pace. We're also working with things like the National Cherry Blossom Festival to bring that light and energy, even absent specific events. So how do you focus on the public realm, which is really, and public spaces, which really reigns supreme right now during a time that I think people are putting a premium on open space and public space, and doing that. We also are looking into how can you use public space differently, even perhaps for office use. And we're talking to a lot of our property owners about, and a number of them are thinking about that for the spring, is introducing outdoor office. And we're actually seeing a lot of our commercial property owners thinking about how they retrofit roofs and other spaces so that they can offer outdoor seating area. So we're also thinking about how we can bring that energy and really outdoor meeting spaces perhaps to folks in the area. Some other examples, this one on the left, so we can do this. During the pandemic, we went ahead and did a lot of inspirational messages, but again, on brand for us. And we put them throughout the district. We also worked with small businesses to do murals on the facades of their storefronts with inspiring messages, work with local artists. Again, wanted to bring attention to small businesses, but use art and culture for placemaking. We're also, I said we don't typically do capital investments, but we are going to embark on redoing ourselves our Metro Plaza. So one of our gateways and entrances from the Metro to our district. It happens to be privately owned plaza. We have a lot of those privately owned but publicly feeling spaces, and we've agreed with the property owner and with our metro system that we can update that to bring a better sense of arrival and a more contemporary landscape and design, and that's in design right now, and we're looking to implement that in the spring. And again, I think that that's a great space for bids, is that supplemental area, a space that's really critical to the front door of your community that may not be on the city's radar or in a priority space for anyone else, but something that the bid might be able to do as a kind of a low-hanging fruit, but completely transformative impact. And that's where the nimbleness of our approach to placemaking happens. And of course, we love the Let's Play was that grounds former vacant parking lot that we made into a fun community space. But we also try to, again, in other times, bring that same level of energy to actual events. So we host a lot of community dinners and our Harvest Social, different seasonal events where we do that. And we think that community building is part of placemaking because especially in a place where there's a lot of change, having stakeholders engaged on board and excited about the future is really important. And just I'll wrap there because I'm really interested in hearing your questions. But I think this is all to say, in just to wrap up on the similarities between our district. With a lot of growth, I think comes a tremendous opportunity to shape place and the understanding of space, place. And so I think that where we're most excited is how we can use our voice and our programs to shape the places that people love, to bring people together, to build a more inclusive and a truly more competitive and compelling downtown. And the sense of place, the identity, the community pride is all a part of the ingredients that will make us a vibrant and sustainable place into the future. And I just wanted to note, I really glossed over the pandemic, but for us, and I would say, we all obviously are seeing some of the same challenges and stresses, especially in our small businesses, as we have seen elsewhere. But I think we feel that the momentum, the energy, the investments in infrastructure are really what positions us to be resilient and poised for a really strong recovery for our area. Is the fundamentals of place are really what position us for that competitive and resilient positioning into the future. So I will close this out so I can see you all as well.
Thank you, Tracey. I wanted to kind of let everybody know that we're nearing 9:50 right now, so we're going to have a round of questions and answers, but I asked that we ask kind of short questions, and that Tracey, that your responses are direct. If there are additional questions that were not asked today that you'd like to get a response to, what I will do is circle back with this group afterwards. Feel free to share those questions with me, and then I'll forward them to Tracey and her team, and we can get some written responses. So with that said, here are the rules. First come, first serve. Just speak out, ask your question, and just respect the space and don't talk over someone. Go ahead, anybody.
For fear of asking something you've covered already, Tracey, I missed a couple minutes at the beginning. Could you talk about the challenges to the challenges to establishing the bid and the timing required to get it going?
Sure. I certainly I think that we had a pretty high threshold to meet in terms of the expectation for how many stakeholders would be willing to sign on. And they actually formally had to sign on. Technically, we don't have guidance at the Commonwealth level that really tells you exactly, you need 50%. There's really no guideline, which made our county take a very conservative approach, which meant, predominantly everyone on board and no squeaky wheels, and for us, I think that was a big challenge, right? So I think we really focused, and our best supporters were those early adopters or champions. So I would say in terms of approach, we had champions. We were really mostly the folks who were already stakeholders in the bid were our biggest champions for expansion. And a lot of them were affected by expansion, right? We have a lot of major property owners that own throughout all 3 districts, or at least 2 of them. And so they were great at, I did the pitch, but also, they were you're having doubts, hear from them. So I think laying out exactly what the value proposition. And I will say that value proposition on that first page of all the programmatic areas that we work in is not the value proposition, right? They're like, great, okay. It was what we can achieve working together. Like, what are we missing out on? How is this going to pass us by if we don't work together at this time where we are seeing growth? If we are not working together and talking together, we're going to miss this opportunity to shape the kind of future we want to have. And they felt like that through our organization that we were going to be much more successful at being able to unify the area and to leverage something like Amazon coming. I think we were already working towards to our bid expansion, and Amazon came in, I would say, roughly halfway through. And for us, we saw that as a real, clearly you need to get on board. This is a great, this is the time. But there are people who felt like this is going to happen anyway. I don't really need to pay into this, right? So I think we were really, and I'm happy to share with you all the kind of value proposition that we put forward. But I think that I think we were able to meet people where we were at, because I think what we did was listen to the needs of what our stakeholders were, and we're really thoughtful about presenting what our programmatic emphasis could be to meet those needs, right? Because in some ways we're shaping what the organization's focus should be going into the future. So we were able to bring in through those conversations, okay, we need to activate this other area. We need to do a better job of making this district feel the energy that's happening on the other side, and how do we do that? And so we kind of know our marching orders on that. And I think a lot of we faced one critical property owner who, quite honestly, was a very flagrant no. And we made the decision, and that was the biggest challenge we had. We pitched at the highest level. I'll go unnamed. A property owner owns a lot of malls. And they just don't have a civic-minded attitude about, or an externally minded focus. It's a mall product. And we decided to cut our district around them. So we have a funny shape to our district, because it was, our stakeholders said, we want people who want in. We don't want to even force them in. If we could force them in, we don't want them in, because we don't want them to stop the momentum that we have working together with a collective vision. And there's so much the more that we can accomplish without their additional money, which would have been significant because they're a large property owner. It was better to be able to keep on track with our collective vision. And I would say the other tool that was very useful during the outreach process was we all went through a strategic planning process that anticipated a bid that didn't exist yet. Like, we had the bid, but we did an area-wide plan that was so much bigger than our bid in anticipation of the bid, and our highest priority implementation item was create a bid for the entire area. So I think we were able to have conversations that were in depth and create a vision that was a collective vision, and know what the pain points were, and bring it together. There are some people who think that a bid is for a time, or is for time when times are rough or tough, and like people are stopping investment, and then, but then I would, and so that there is that perception sometimes. So your growing area. I think that understanding that shaping and storytelling, placemaking, advocacy, these are things you need when you're also on the up. And that's something that can be incredibly effective in terms of, taking it to the next level and delivering the place that you want to have. So they're all things to consider, but I think that there's no one, even the naysayers have come on fully as like, yeah, we should have been doing this. So so there's the kind of proof in the experience and the endorsements of others.
Thank you, Tracey, and thank you, Rob. That was a great question, and what an awesome response. We're at the point in our agenda where we do need to transition to our breakout sessions, but if I could, I don't know how to say thank you to Tracey for being with us today in this weird sort of online environment, but on behalf of everybody here, Tracey, thank you and your team for sharing your story and giving us a glimpse into how you've shaped your world. There are so many different parallels between our places, and we have a lot to learn from you. So we're grateful for your time, and we're eager to see what happens in your neck of the woods.
That's great, and I want to offer to everyone, because I was a bit long-winded for our short time frame. So if there are questions, I'm a big advocate for sharing amongst downtowns, and so anything that I can provide, or any follow-up questions I can take offline, I'm happy to do that.
And that invitation is extended to you as well. We're here, and we're happy to share our secrets and our lessons learned.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you.